अभी हम आपको इस्लामाबाद लिए चलेंगे। वज़ीर ख़ज़ाना मोहम्मद औरंगज़ेब तकरीब से खिताब कर रहे हैं।
Fiscal discussion at this point in time, and we, along with the Governor of the Central Bank, we stand firm in terms of the targets that we have in the economy, whether it's our FX reserves or it's other commitments that we have made to international institutions for this fiscal year. As far as the second and third order impact is concerned, it's a direct function of the duration and the intensity of the conflict. And therefore, उसमें भी हमने जो सिनारियो एनालिसिस है वो बिल्कुल हम कर रहे हैं और इसमें जो इस वक्त NCMC which is working and they are working on the procurement, the logistics, the food security, everything that is going to be important to keep us moving in the right direction. And at the same time, as I said, on some of the macro situation and the macro discussion, we are very laser focused in the fact that during this conflict we have been able to tap international capital markets after a hiatus of 4 years shows the kind of trust and confidence that not only G2G discussion but the international investors and institutional investors are showing in Pakistan. Now the topic at hand. वो मेरे पास एक लिखी हुई तकरीर है लेकिन आपका वक्त बहुत कीमती है तो I'm just going to focus on 3 or 4 things which I do think are very critical. पहली बात तो ये है कि जो कैपिटल मार्केट्स की डिस्कशन हुई है डॉक्टर सिद्धू ने बात की है. Then the second part of it is equity versus the debt capital market. The third part of it is the role of the SCCP as a regulator. And then the fourth one, why all of us are together here, which is partnership. So I agree कि आज का ये जो तकरीब है, this is a very important step in the right direction. It's a milestone which actually shows our collective resolve. It's not about me chairing the Capital Market Development Council, but collective resolve to deepen, broaden and modernize the capital markets in Pakistan. ये सिर्फ किताबी बातें नहीं हैं कि जो robust capital markets हैं, they are engines of sustainable growth. Whether it's in the context of mobilizing savings, channeling capital, enabling risk sharing, and even more importantly, accessing long-term financing, whether those are startups or infrastructure projects. देखिए ये मैं I would take it back into the discussion and the overview with respect to the conflict because 2020 hindsight is a wonderful thing. तो इस conflict से पिछले 2 महीने में हमने क्या चीजें सीखी हैं जो हमें करना चाहिए था और अब इंशाल्लाह आगे करेंगे. One, commercial reserves are not good enough. Any country has to build strategic reserves. Number 2, we are on our way, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether it's hydro, but we have to accelerate our journey towards renewables. And we will do every possible thing to make financing available to accelerate our journey towards renewables. And that's where capital markets again comes in. And the third thing I would say is indigenous. अपने आप पर rely करना सीखें. Yes, we have our bilateral partners, we have our multilateral partners, but ultimately, और इसका एक एग्जाम्पल मैं आपको ये देता हूँ कि 22 का जब फ्लड आया, it was a devastating flood. It affected one river and essentially one province or maybe part of the second province. And we had to go for international appeal right away. Geneva हम पहुंचे, pledges ली, उसमें से कुछ आया, कुछ नहीं आया. 25 flooding. Unfortunately, it was more intense than 22. 3 rivers and almost the entire Pakistan got affected. और उसमें बड़ा उस वक्त था कि इंटरनेशनल क्यों इंटरनेशनल अपील पे जाए if we have the fiscal buffer available, if we have the resources available here in terms of rescue and relief, and then into reconstruction, rehabilitation, we don't need to rely on any other country or any other multilateral institution. That is the power that जब हम बात करते हैं पाकिस्तान फर्स्ट की, जब हम बात करते हैं हमारी डिप्लोमेसी की, उसी में जो बात होती है कि जी national security is energy security and therefore economic security. That is the power of macroeconomic stability, ladies and gentlemen. जब हम बात करते हैं कि मैक्रो स्टेबिलिटी आ गई है, ग्रोथ क्यों नहीं आ रही, तो उसका क्या फायदा है? That is basic hygiene. Whether it's foreign investors, local investors, or when we get into these exogenous shocks, that's where the fiscal buffers and the macro stability comes in. And inshallah, we are very focused. More and more and more, we are going to be focused on our indigenous capital raising, indigenous resourcing to fund what we need to do as part of national security. की वजह से उसमें या insufficiency है या उसकी suitability नहीं है, and therefore we need to diversify away. I was told कि मैंने कितने banks के लिए काम किया है, but we have to diversify away from the concentration that we have on the banking sector, including the government, including the private sector. Government का तो ये कहा जाता है कि we are crowding out the private sector. So therefore we have to go into the sukuks and the capital markets and everything that we are trying to do. But for the private sector, I think that's also going to be very important. दूसरा जो मैंने point कहा कि equity की बात की, डॉक्टर सिद्धू ने भी उसकी बात की, उसमें कोई शक की गुंजाइश नहीं है कि notwithstanding the volatility that we have seen, primarily because of the conflict over the last 4 to 6 weeks, because ये एक बड़ी uncertain situation है. There is risk off, there is risk on, and then within the same day there is risk off and risk on, depending on who tweets and who says what, etc. तो इसलिए वो volatility जो है वो अपनी जगह बरकरार है. लेकिन for me, you know, the underlying pillars and the fundamental factors which are coming through. So from what I understand on equity front, 2,20,000 से ज़्यादा investors have entered the market over the last 2 years. And these are led by youth, which is essentially Gen Z, tech and digital access. इसी तरह जो अप्रैल का नंबर है, मैंने बात की मैक्रो इंडिसेस पे कि रेमिटेंसेस कहाँ हैं, आरडीए फ्लोज कहाँ हैं, एक्सेट्रा. बट अगर सिर्फ अप्रैल में आप देखें जहाँ वॉलेटिलिटी स्टॉक मार्केट की बहुत ज़्यादा रही है, तो अगेन फ्रॉम व्हाट आई अंडरस्टैंड दैट 24,000 न्यू investors have entered the market in April. This is highest ever in any given month. So I think from the equity side, we are indeed moving in the right direction. On the debt capital market side, from my perspective, we've actually gone into a reverse gear. मैं 2000 बात की 2001 में जब मैं यहाँ इवन आमरों के साथ employment में था, at that point in time, WADA had gone into mini bonds, into the retail investor base, और उसके बाद ऐसा रिवर्स गियर लगा कि हमने DCM को वापस उठते देखा ही नहीं.
इस्लामाबाद में वफाकी वज़ीर ख़ज़ाना मोहम्मद औरंगज़ेब तकरीब से खिताब कर रहे थे.
तकरीब से खिताब में उनका ये कहना था कि हमें अपनी तरजीहात को बेहतर करना होगा और तरजीहात की बेहतरी से ही हमें ये भी देखना होगा कि हम अपनी रिसोर्सेज पर कितना ज़्यादा रिलाई कर सकें.
सब्सक्राइब करें और बेल दबाएं ताकि कोई खबर रह न जाए.